Whether you're joining a Product Marketing Alliance event for the first time, or if you're a seasoned regular, welcome to Masters of Product Marketing 2022. We have an awesome lineup of leadership-focused content for you to enjoy over the next 2 days. But before we dive in, I just want to say a few thank yous. Thank you to our sponsor partners, insightful speakers, and of course you, our lovely audience. From wherever in the world you are watching, we hope you enjoy the sessions. To get the most out of these talks, please ensure you are sharing your feedback and asking your questions in the comments section, as our speakers will be answering them throughout the day. After the event, a great place to continue the conversation is in the PMA Slack community. If you aren't already a member, hop on over and join the discussions. And if that's still not enough, then why not become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, meetups, mentors, and our entire library of videos and slide decks from all our events. So with all that to come, let's dive right into the next session.
Hi everyone, my name is Tracy Montour, and I'm currently the Director of Product Marketing at HiredScore, which is an AI HR technology company. I joined HiredScore, which is which when I joined was an 8-year-old company serving 40% of the Fortune 100 that had never had a product marketer before. So I knew going into my role a year and a half ago that this would be a challenge that many of you have probably experienced or are experiencing now, which is why I'm guessing that you're here today with me. And I knew that going into this role, I would be drinking through the fire hose, but also that it would be a massive opportunity. It's not often that you get to build something from the ground up. And as a product marketer, I love taking something complex and making it simple and digestible. And you can not only do that with messaging and positioning, but you can do that internally with your processes as well. That doesn't mean it's not hard. But if you're like me, you want your career to focus on making a strategic impact and not just focusing on tactical work. It's so easy as the sole or as the first product marketer in an organization to turn into the person that makes all the one-pagers or slides and everyone just goes to you for that. Eventually, you become bombarded with these small tasks and they take up so much of your mental bandwidth that you get burnt out and don't end up working on the necessary strategic work that is required to drive change and also is the work that we all became product marketers to do. If you're like me, you want to drive impact, you want to accelerate revenue, and even change the way that people think, work, and live. It's why we become product marketers. Yet 21%, according to the Product Marketing Alliance, 21% of product marketers are doing it alone. Now, that's a really tough place to be. And I've been there. Maybe you're there now. Maybe you want to be in this exact position right now. Well, you're in luck. I've done it. I'm going to share some best practices with you. And today we're going to discuss how to set yourself up and your future team up for maximum impact. We're going to discuss 3 things. My favorite 3 things: foundational strategies, cross-functional alignment, and processes. And yes, as you can guess, I am super fun at parties. Product marketing kind of always tends to be a little chaotic and full of ambiguity, right? That's part of the allure, that's part of the fun. Solving a puzzle, problem solving, making sense of something that's very complex. That's what we love about product marketing. We also get to work with so many stakeholders and be at the center of everything that goes on within the organization. But this is amplified exponentially when you're building the function from the ground up. Some people say it's like building the plane while you're flying it. I like that analogy, but to me, it doesn't really resonate because what if all of the other departments already have their planes built? What if every department has a different caliber of plane? One department's flying a paper airplane and one department's flying a fighter jet. What if they're all flying at different speeds? What if they have different needs? What if every department has a completely different route to the destination? So, to be seen as strategic from day one, in my opinion, it's mission critical to be the internal air traffic controller for your organization. I've heard product marketers described as quarterbacks, as every other analogy. I really love this analogy of air traffic controller. But what does it actually mean? As the air traffic controller, you have to balance three things: position, speed, and altitude. As product marketers, positioning needs to be our number one priority. We need to create a clear frame of reference around who should buy our products and why they should buy them. We need to deeply understand the triggers, challenges, motivations, and daily frustrations of our personas. We need our external message and product value to make this promise and then deliver on that. That's a big ask, and that is definitely our number one priority. We also need to manage the speed or the cadence of how and when the company brings products to market. We can't land all the planes at once, right? That would just be ineffective. We also can't land a plane every minute and cause fatigue. We need to coordinate launches for maximum impact and ensure we align the customer and the business needs and expectations. This is where altitude comes in. As product marketers, we need to understand the needs of the customer more deeply than anyone else in the company. And we need to be the voice of the customer within the organization to ensure we are communicating and building the right products at the right depth to provide value and ensure business health. Altitude also has to do with our messaging. How deep do we go? How complex do we go? How do we appeal to the frustrations or desires or gaps in their daily life? And this is mission critical, like I said. Now, this probably isn't what you want to hear, or maybe it is if you're type A like me. But all great product marketing work starts with the process. And I believe there are many buckets of important processes, but these three are critical: stakeholder processes, functional processes, and prioritization processes. Now, managing stakeholder relationships and expectations is so important to your success, especially if you're the first product marketer in an organization. Every product marketing is different in every single company, and people need to understand how to work with you, what your version of product marketing looks like, how can you best help the business. And the ability to influence is one of the most impactful skills a product marketing leader can have. Depending on how your organization works, the types of relationships you have to manage may be different. But I found that product marketers mainly need to balance relationships between sales, marketing, customer success, product, and the customer. Now, of course, the customer is your number one stakeholder and should be built into the processes you establish. Building relationships with stakeholders does take time. You're not just going to come in and everybody trusts you at 100%, has 100% faith in you and lets you do whatever you want. You really do need to establish credibility and build trust. Now, set regular meetings with your stakeholders and build these meaningful relationships. It's not just about talking about work all the time or about our upcoming projects. It's about getting to know them, understanding their motivations. Think about them like a persona or a user or buyer of your product. How can you influence them and appeal to what they care about? Give a damn about what they're working on and try to help them achieve their goals. The most effective cross-functional relationships have clear roles and responsibilities. People have to understand how you and your team can help them. Guide your stakeholders and teach them how to use you. In my role at HiredScore, I have for example, how to work with product marketing deck that I take all new employees through. It eliminates the guesswork, and also they can check back at any time to understand how to get more value out of my team and how to best work with my team. You can also use a framework like DAISY, which is driver, approver, contributor, and informed, to establish clear roles and responsibilities when working on cross-functional projects. So establish boundaries when you're working cross-functionally so people know how to work with you. And then, of course, if you're in a small organization like I am, there's often times where you have to step outside of those clear boundaries, but it's important to have a frank discussion when those boundaries are at risk and get alignment on who's handling what and why. Align your work around the same goals, but don't over-index on a specific stakeholder's perspective. Now, it's critical to have checks and balances within your process. So, you need to find common ground across the stakeholders you manage. I often find that product marketers are the best at building consensus because we have exposure to so many different areas of the business and can quickly point out incongruencies and points of contention with an objective lens, right? We're kind of outside a lot of the action, so we can come in and give our objective opinion or objective view of the situation and help people figure out how to navigate it. Don't be afraid to do this. It'll only help make your company stronger and build your credibility. One of my favorite ways to do this is to have individual meetings with stakeholders prior to a larger alignment meeting. Now, I know you're probably cringing at the thought of this, more meetings, more time on the calendar. I do really find this impactful because I spend time digging into their concerns, their challenges, and their personal objectives. If I'm aware of everyone's agenda going into the larger meeting, I can steer us towards an outcome that benefits everybody if at all possible. It's like a game of chess. You need to understand the full chessboard so that you can coordinate the moves. It also helps stakeholders and executives feel like the product marketing team is trying their best to listen to their needs and concerns and help advance their strategic initiatives forward. At the same time, I really do believe in this concept of the obligation to dissent. Don't just move other people's initiatives forward, or even worse, say you will do so if you don't plan on doing it. If you strongly disagree with something, you need to say it. Authenticity is so important for building relationships, especially virtually. But make sure you have the conversation privately and build these processes in so that you can have these conversations, these honest and candid conversations with your stakeholders so that they come to you as a trusted advisor. Next, we have functional processes. So definitely not sexy, but definitely necessary. This is very dependent on your organization's situation and the way you work, but I've listed a few examples here. For example, launch sizing is kind of a universal functional process that's important to every product marketing organization. You'll need to outline what types of launches you support as a product marketer and how you'll support them. Help your stakeholders understand what the process is for a small feature release versus a new product launch. What expectations should they have? How will you communicate? How will you collaborate? Lay this all out and get alignment on the process. Be open to feedback and adapt the process as you learn and grow. Develop a repeatable, scalable process that people can understand and anticipate. People tend to get frustrated or feel misunderstood when they're not part of the process or they don't know what to expect. So, for example, lay out when you'll enable your sales team, what the expectations are for internal communication, what the expectations are for external communication, because functional processes like this give the organization confidence in you and your team. It eliminates this one element of ambiguity that they can be confident that they know what's coming. It also provides a shared lens throughout the organization to evaluate, plan, and align around the work that product marketing is doing. Now, lastly, prioritization processes are critical. Whether you're one person or you have a small team, there's absolutely no way you can tackle all the work that needs to be done. And you need to make this known to your organization. And you will need to prioritize with a critical lens. So get alignment with your stakeholders on the work that will drive the most impact. Help them understand how the work that you're doing will help them meet their goals. And then conduct this process on a regular basis and communicate it often, quarterly, for example. People need to know what's going on, and as long as you're proactive about this prioritization, they will feel confident in your abilities. So make sure your stakeholders are bought in to not only this process, but the work that you're going to be completing. And then make sure they feel empowered to have access to this information, communicate it to others, and that they feel fully comfortable. Include their ideas and inputs into your roadmap while also maintaining your own strong point of view. And you may be seeing a common thread here across all three of these buckets, and it's really about getting alignment early and often. So, stakeholder alignment will build your credibility and establish trust in your processes, which then gives you the ability to scale and focus on strategic work. No matter what processes you're building, communicate them, get alignment early and often, make others' needs feel heard and addressed, be clear about your priorities, always tie your work back to company objectives, and most importantly, don't promise to do everything. Focus on the work that will have the most important impact to the business and help people understand why. Now, as product marketers, we spend a lot of time getting our audience to understand what we do. External people outside of the company, our customers, analysts, partners, to understand what we do and speaking our language. But what happens if not everyone's speaking the same language internally? So part of our role as product marketing managers or product marketing leaders is driving this alignment internally. So what does it look like when you're trying to get everybody internally to speak the same language? Well, first you have to be a listener, and I find it's really simple when you first join an organization because you don't have any blind spots. You can listen objectively, and you can have a really fresh perspective in the organization. So go in, whether you've been there 5 years or 5 days, be a listener. Put on your external hat and really take a look at all the challenges each department's going through, and then agree on goals, right? You need these overarching company goals. We need the company to all be working towards a common goal. Now, of course, every team's going to have their own flavor, but if the CS team is going one direction and the sales team is going another direction and the marketing team is going in another direction, that is a big challenge. And we need to all align around these goals and having different routes that we can get to the same goal. And I think part of helping that become a reality is showing how you, as a product marketing leader, can help other teams win, right? Since we work so cross-functionally, there's really never a time when our goals as a product marketing team don't influence another team's goals. So understand where you can have an impact and how you can help accelerate progress towards those goals you aligned on. You'll also want to communicate often. I always say I'm an over communicator, and I think it's really critical for product marketing to do so because we do have such like a strategic, broad, cross-functional impact within the organization. We have exposure to a lot of different challenges and things, and finding a way to communicate that with stakeholders is really important. So like we talked about in the last slide, having those meetings, helping people get access to the information they need, really being the connector, the air traffic controller for all of the information internally within the company is super critical. But also doing things like sending out a newsletter, being available, maybe having office hours, sending out Slack messages, whatever mode of communication works best for your company. Do it often. People will tell you if you are over communicating and it's way too much. It's really never the case. People love information, and just giving them access to that information helps people speak the same language, be on the same page, get alignment. And then more literally, we need to standardize language internally, right? So if you notice people are calling things different names internally, there can just be clear miscommunications between people talking about the same exact thing, but not knowing it. So maybe make a Confluence page with all the definitions of the internal words and get alignment on that. As simple as that. Help people say the same words and mean the same thing internally. And that will also definitely translate externally as well. If everyone's on the same page, speaking the same language internally, your life will be a lot easier when communicating with customers, communicating with analysts, communicating with prospects. You'll notice that it's a lot more streamlined. And lastly, but definitely not least, we need to build for scale. So what does this look like? Building repeatable processes. Now this is definitely easier said than done, but what's really critical is building a process, trying it, sticking to it, and adjusting. Now, not every process is going to work right away. You might build a process and find out it's totally wrong for your organization. Now, it doesn't mean you should just abandon the process and do everything ad hoc every time. That's not going to allow you to scale. You're going to spend the majority of your time being a project manager and you will get burnt out very quickly. Building repeatable processes is critical. So spend that time building the process, try it out, and then debrief with your team or send out a notice when something needs to change or be rebuilt and let them know where the points of failure are. And if you can't figure it out, try and try again and determine maybe there are too many steps. Maybe there aren't enough steps. Maybe you left out your implementation team or your customer success team from one step, and help people feel that this process is always growing and evolving, and then but becoming better and more efficient and effective. And just try and try again to repeat processes until you have something that really is tailor-made for your organization. But that being said, when organizations are growing really quickly, it's critical that you take a step back from your processes every so often, maybe every quarter or every 6 months, to see, okay, we used to have 500 employees. Now we have 600 employees. What's different? What needs to change in this process? How do I bring in these new roles or these other teams? Is this process really effective for the scale of our organization or the size or the stage of our organization? So really taking a critical lens on these repeatable processes will be really important. And then, of course, more tactically, rolling up the smaller projects or smaller feature releases into thematic initiatives. This will save you a lot of time, bundling smaller launch communications and making sure people internally and externally, so both employees and customers and prospects, understand why it's relevant to them, why we're doing this, and making sure we're making the most of people's short attention spans. Promoting every launch at the same level results in fatigue across the board and is not effective. So make sure you're focusing on being loud around the high impact launches, and then bundle those smaller launches for a more impactful message internally and externally. Lastly, you'll want to optimize your resources. So, like I said, if you're just a team of one, if you're a small team, there's no way you can get to everything. We all have a limited bandwidth, we all have limited resources, and we need to focus our efforts on the launches that will have the most impact. So these launches and projects need to be aligned upon with all of your stakeholders, like we talked about earlier. They need to be following a process, and we need to know our clear roles and responsibilities. Now, these 3 steps are just part of the puzzle for building for scale. I know we covered a lot today in a short period of time, but I do want you to know that if you're going through this, you're not alone. Everyone's figuring out how to be a strategic product marketer in their own way, and it definitely varies from organization to organization. If you have any questions at all, you can obviously put them in the chat and I will answer you. Or you can email me at tracymontour@gmail.com or tracy@hiredscore.com. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to chat. I know that being a product marketer often comes with a lot of ambiguity, a lot of pressure, and a lot of exciting opportunities at the same time. But you're not alone. We have groups like this Product Marketing Alliance and others that have done it before that can help. Happy to help. I hope this created some inspiration or clarity for some of you, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you all do.